Hello, and welcome to the Global Students Introduction to the Law of the United States. This is the MOOC by the University of Florida's Levin College of Law. My name is Pedro A. Malaver. I'm a member of the faculty, and I will be covering the introductory materials. I will also be covering a brief history of the Constitution of the United States in this lecture, and in the series, I will be discussing the constitutional structure of the United States. Allow me to give you an overview of this series. It is about the law of the United States, the basic history of our Constitution, the constitutional structure of the United States with special emphasis on separation of powers and judicial review. And then I will spend more time on the concept of federalism, the shared sovereignty of the United States. The recommended readings for this course are J. Feynman Law 101 is the one that we expect to have you use. But I personally use William Burnham Introduction to the Law and Legal System of the United States in the courses that I teach, and I highly recommend that, especially since it is the foundation of my presentation. I also recommend the Library of Congress website as a wonderful resource on materials on the law and legal system of the United States. I teach basically this class. In the LLM in Comparative Law program at the University of Florida, I teach Introduction to the Law and Legal System of the United States. And if you go to my dedicated website for the LLM, you will find materials related to this class if you wish to learn more about the law and legal system of the United States. We will also give you links in our MOOC page to very useful resources. I start today with a brief history of the United States as it relates to law. The American Revolution, the Articles of Confederation, and then eventually our fundamental legal document, the Constitution of the United States. But it all started with the Declaration of Independence on July 4th of 1776. And this was the culmination of a process that involved law in many parts, but that started with a revolt against a tax law. The Boston Tea Party was an act of rebellion against a tax act on tea, and the British followed with severe reprisals against the colonists. And probably the single most important one, again, related to law. It was an amendment in 1774 to the Quartering Act, which allowed any British soldier to essentially be placed in any occupied home in what is today the United States, and what was then just the 13 colonies. The colonies had had enough, and they constituted themselves in the First Continental Congress, which opened up September the 5th of 1774 and lasted until October the 6th of 1774. The Second Continental Congress starts on May 10th of 1775 and ends on March 1st of 1781. On July 4th of 1776, the Declaration of Independence was approved by the Second Continental Congress, literally the birth of the United States as a new nation independent from Great Britain. Although, of course, there was still the little matter of a war to be fought. But my focus is on law. And the first charter for the United States is the Articles of Confederation of 1781. And the colonists realized immediately after the passage of the Declaration of Independence that they would need a plan of confederation, some way of legally organizing these colonies into a nation. And eventually, this led to the passage of the Articles of Confederation, our first charter. The Articles of Confederation are the most important legal product of the Continental Congresses. It is the first attempt at a charter for what would eventually become the United States. But it had problems. It had no true national government. The Congress, the legislature, or congressional committees were in fact in charge, and it required a supermajority of 9 of the 13 then colonies, eventually states, for most votes, and unanimity for any kind of amendment to the articles themselves. This did not work. Therefore, a constitutional convention would eventually be required. First, there was a conference on navigation of interstate rivers at which James Madison of Virginia recommended that there should be a constitutional convention to fix the problems that the country was having with the Articles of Confederation. The Congress met in Philadelphia in 1787. 12 of the 13 colonies sent representatives to this meeting, and it eventually constituted itself in a constitutional convention. This is where they met, Independence Hall in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. This is where the founding fathers of our nation produced the single most important legal document in our history. The debate at this convention was very much centered on what kind of national government we ought to have. Should we have a more powerful national government? On that, they all agreed. But how powerful this government should be, that they did not agree upon. They knew that they needed a stronger government than that provided for in the Articles of Confederation, and one that was not despotic like the British government. But the details divided the convention. The convention's divisions were among Federalists and Anti-Federalists. The so-called Federalists were those who favored a strong national government, and the Anti-Federalists were those that today we would label states' rights supporters, people who favored a national government that had limited powers, and particularly one that deferred to the states in the exercise of legal authority. The document that this convention produced is, of course, the Constitution of the United States. We, the people, in Congress assembled. And this Constitution was approved by the convention on September 17th of 1787. It was sent by Congress, to the states by the Congress, on September 28th, 1787. It was ratified by the minimum number of states on June 21st, 1788, and the effective date for its application set by the Congress was March 9th of 1789. This is why we typically refer to the Constitution as the Constitution of 1789. The Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution of the United States. And they together collectively represent the fundamental rights that are guaranteed to all Americans by the Constitution. The Bill of Rights was very much demanded by the states. In fact, 5 of the states at the time of ratification demanded that the Bill of Rights be passed. It was drafted primarily by James Madison, who was a Federalist, one of those who favored a strong national government. And he, in fact, had urged a delay in ratification until passage of the Bill of Rights. It was incorporated into the Constitution, as I said, as the first 10 amendments to it in 1791. This is the conclusion of our brief history, and allow me to give you some ideas of its importance. The need for our Constitution and something to replace the charter, the previous charter, was very clear. The Articles of Confederation simply had not worked. But there were different visions among our founding fathers. The Federalist and Anti-Federalist views in many ways divide us to this day. And the Constitution itself is a general document which leaves many areas unclear and for future decision, much of it by judicial decision. But in fact, the basic legal design of our country is this Constitution, which is why we start our course with it. And allow me also in conclusion to say that the most common question that students ask me when they're planning to come to law school is, Professor Malavet, what should I do in university? What should I study in college if I'm planning to go to law school? And I always tell them, study history. It is impossible to study law if you do not understand the history that underlies it. And that is why we have started our first session with the legal history of the United States in extremely brief form. Thank you.